but obviously not similar to an engineering answer, but
that the IRR is the rate at which the NPV becomes zero.
Right, so today we're going to be discussing more towards a common topic, I would say. You tend to ask a student that, what do you mean by NPV and IRR? And he will give this classical answer just like,
Yes.
Sir, machines are any combination of bodies so connected that their relative motions are constrained, and by which means force and motion may be transmitted and modified as a screw in its nut or a lever arranged to turn about.
but obviously not similar to an engineering answer, but
That the IRR is the rate at which the NPV becomes zero.
if you ask him to explain it further, most likely he will not know because he really does not know the implications of NPV and IRR. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a real life example, okay, and not try to understand this in a very, very complex project finance basis or financial statements basis, but let's try to use this in a very simple logic of a property purchase, and that is when things will become clearer to you. I'm not going to bore you with the theory, and I'm going to directly go to the template. The template is attached to this video. So let's say that there's a property which is available for 90 lakhs. Okay, pretty reasonable property considering how the rates are currently in the market. And let's say the banks are ready to fund about 50% of the purchase price, right? Interest rate is about 6%. The term loan which is available for property purchase is about 30 years. The property appreciation rate, I've zoomed it to about 10%. Okay, just for the purpose of calculations. The rental yield, which basically means that at any given year, how much rent can we probably fetch, compared to the property price. So if the rental yield is 4% in this case, all that means is if you just multiply 90 lakh with 4%, then 3,60,000 is what you get as the annual rent, right? Which is how generally the rent are between 2 to 4% of the property in every city, right? The rental increment or escalation is what we call it in proper terminology, is about 7%. So we're expecting that the 3,60,000 rupees will increase by 7% every year, right? And what we intend to do is, since we're not going to be occupying this property for personal use, we're going to be renting it out. We want to exit this property in about 7 years, right? And the property sale price basis on how much this property is actually going to increase at 10% is estimated about 1.75 crores 7 years hence. All right. Nifty 50 returns, for the sake of calculation, which you don't have to understand at the moment, I've taken it as average as 12%. Okay, Nifty 50 means the index of India, which represents the top 50 stocks, right? So the average returns on that in the longer term is about 12%. Okay, so where does this concept of NPV and IRR come in handy here? Okay, so it doesn't come handy directly. So first of all, we want to answer a question, and in the process NPV and IRR will come in handy. Okay, the answer is how much return do we actually make, right? Considering all of these calculations, how much return do we make, right? And how much return we make, not just in terms of percentage, but we also want to find out in cash terms today, how much money do we make, right? So 1.75 crores in the future, right? But we want to know, considering the rents that we're going to come, the interest that we're going to pay, all of that considered, what is the value of cash today? So that will make us decide whether we want to do this investment or not, right? So that's the context of the calculation. Now let's just get into the calculation. Okay, so the property price, I'll just link it, okay, from the assumptions. There you go. Now at the moment, initially I want to show you the calculation without considering loan, so that you understand the concept first and then I do the complication later. Okay, so year 0 we purchase the property at 90 lakhs, and I'm going to put it as negative because we're investing, so it has to be going out of our bank account, right? So it's negative positive. Anything we receive will be positive. Every year we will be receiving a rent of, just like how I said, 90 lakh multiplied by the rental yield, which is 4%. I'm putting a dollar sign in both the cases because both the assumptions are fixed. Okay, the property purchase ain't going to increase, but the rent will definitely increase by 7% every year. There you go. All right. So that's how the rent will look like for 7 odd years. Right. So the last year value is about 540263. And now what we want to do is we want to sell off the property in year 7. Okay. Now we will sell this property, which basically means that we'll get the money back. So that's a positive cash flow. So I'll just link the 1.75 crores from here. All right. So in total, the question is, okay, this is how money is going to look like overall. Okay. So 90 lakhs goes out of my bank account. Then I'm getting 3 lakh 60. Then I'm getting 3 lakh 85, 412, etc. till year 7. Right. But this has really no meaning. I mean, what do I do? I mean, what calculation do I perform to decide? I can't just, okay, just, let's just sum this up, let's just add everything up and see how much we make. And this tends to give a very big number of, let's say, 1.16 crores. But this has really no meaning, because a bird in hand is worth more than the bird in the bush. Okay. And the bush is basically these years in the forward. Okay. And which means that value of money keeps on dropping as we go across years, because of course there's inflation, right, which comes up every year, so which decreases the value of money. So we want to find out what is the worth of all of these cash flow today. Okay, so the idea is, how do I get these values to today? Because we are sitting here, so this is where we are, right? So 2022, this is where we are in the G column, right? Now, these cash flows are happening on subsequent years. So this is happening in 2023, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Right? Now, what I want to do is, from each of these years, I want to bring it back, okay, to year 0. Now, the problem is, how do I bring it back? How do I reduce the value? By how much do I reduce the value? Right? So, of course, the percentage concept definitely comes here. But by how much should the value actually decrease every year? That's the next question, right? And that is where the question of R comes, which is the rate of discounting, right? So since we are getting it back from each subsequent years back to year 0, it is called as discounting. If, on the other hand, we were to take a value from year 0 and take it forward each year, that would be called as compounding, right? So usually, the simplest way of understanding this is to divide the value. Because if you are compounding, what you're doing, if I want to compound 100 rupees and increase it by 10%, I would do 1 plus 10%, right? And that would give me the future value. Okay, so I'll just keep this open for a while just to make sure that you understand this concept. Okay, so that's the formula of the future value, right? So future value is present value into 1 plus the rate at which probably the value might increase. But out here, we are interested in finding the present value. So it will go exactly the opposite. All right. So in this case, we will divide this. Okay. If in case we're getting 110 in the next year and I want to bring it back to year 0, then all I do is divide this and do raised to 1. So I get 100. Right. So the concept here doesn't really change much. But now the question which arises again is that what rate do I use? Right? Now that is where it depends upon where my existing investments are generating return from. So if
we are going to want to get a significantly higher return, obviously, in terms of cash produced relative to the amount we're outlaying now for a business than we are from a government bond. I mean, we're going to, that has to be the yardstick at a base.
I am an equity investor, okay, and I'm generating 12%. That means for me, 12% is important because I would like to earn more than 12%, right? Why would I want to be investing less than 12%? Because if I'm earning, let's say, 8% from this property, then might as well put all the money in the Nifty itself and generate more returns, right? So hence, my minimum required rate of return, that's where the concept of minimum required, it's actually literally the same thing, right? Today, if you are already earning a salary of 25,000, why will you accept 23,000 unless there is a good solid reason for that?
If I have something available that I think will give me 8% for sure, and I can buy all I want of it, and you've got a perfectly good investment that I think will earn 7, I don't have to waste 5 minutes with you.
That's what is called the opportunity cost. So my discounting is not just inflation, because inflation is just taking care of the value of money in terms of purchasing power, but I also have opportunity cost, right? So when you combine opportunity cost with purchasing power, that becomes your discounting rate. Okay, I mean, if we are to talk in terms of a nutshell, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this 12% out here. Okay, so that's going to be our each and every year's discounting rate. All right, so there you go, 12% each year. 0.12 means 12%. If you want to look at it in terms of a percentage, we can do that as well. First, let me just link all of that together. Okay, and let me also convert that into percentage. There you go. So now you've got 12% discounting, and that means we want to find out the value today by discounting at 12%, right? So what we'll do is we'll just put up the formula, which is, this is the future value divided by 1 plus the rate. Okay, you don't really have to put a dollar sign out here, because anyways we have given the value in each and every column, right? And raised to how many years that we are going to discount it back. So in this case, we're discounting back to only 1 year, right? So the value 321429, all that it means is that 3,60,000, which is worth next year, will be valuable to 3,21,429 if we were to consider 12% as the discounting rate. All right, now let me just drag this across. Okay, so these are my values. Now, of course, there should be no change with 90 lakhs, because 90 lakhs is happening today. So if you're discounting raised to 0, that means the value will be 90 lakhs itself, right? Now, the question that you generally would ask is, okay, this is what I'm getting, okay, and this is what I'm investing. Okay, this is what I'm getting in terms of present value, and this is what I'm investing also in terms of present value. So what is the net present value? So it's just nothing but the sum of all of this. That's nothing but net present value, right? Now, then what is the concept of IRR, right? So you understood how much money you made in terms of rupees, but now you also want a percentage value, right? Now, first I will just show you the calculation of IRR using a function. So you just type IRR and just select all the cash flows directly. There you go. So you get about 13.7 odd percent, right? But how do you actually, what is the meaning of this is only understood when you actually do this manually. In fact, for NPV also I showed you the manual calculation, but you could also use the function by using the rate of 12%, okay, and take the cash flow from year 1. Don't make a mistake of taking the cash flow from year 0, because it will not make sense, okay, because it will take, what Excel does is it considers the first value as year 1 value, okay, so that's the reason why you need to take it from year 1. So I took the rate as 12%, there you go, and I take the total cash flows and then add the initial investment separately, so that it does not discount 90 lakhs as year 1. Okay, so there you go, you get the same value, right? So of course, a lot of students do understand how to use the function, but they don't understand what exactly you're doing. And all you're doing is nothing but just plain discounting, right? And then you're removing the initial investment, that's it. But what is IRR, right? So that is where we want to go. Now, we have already put in the formula out here, right? It is impossible for us to understand how much returns we are making, because there are so many cash flows which are available. Like, I mean, you've got 3,60,000 in 1 year, and then you've got 3,85,000, then you have 412. So all we want to do is, what is that average rate? Okay, because rate is finally something related to time, and it is telling us at how much it is happening, right? It's not necessarily saying how much money we made. It is just telling us that, you know, it's like saying 3 hours, right, or 10 hours, right? So all we want to do is, we want to find out what is the rate which equalizes these cash flows. Okay, again, understand, equalizes the cash flows. So in order to make you understand this, what we will do is, we'll just fiddle around with the rate itself. Okay, so let's try 13% and see what exactly happens to the NPV. Okay, so if I put 13, then the NPV now has dropped to 359,579. What happens if I do 13.5? it comes out even below, right? Now, if I put the exact value, whatever I got here, out into my rate, right? There you go. So my NPV becomes 0. So this is the rate, an average rate at which it is equalizing the initial investment to the future cash flows. And that probably is the rate of return, is what the IRR is telling us. So there is a problem with IRR again, okay, that it is assuming, okay, because finally you're just doing guesswork here, right? You're guessing that, okay, maybe this is the rate at which, this is the rate which is equalizing the cash flow, and hence this is the rate of return. But what it is assuming is that every year, this 3,60,000 rent or cash flow that you're getting, finally after paying off everything, you're reinvesting at the IRR rate itself. Now that might be a lot to understand, but you'll have to do this calculation a couple of times to understand why I'm saying this, right? Because IRR finally is a hit and trial method, okay? And that is the reason you have to be careful with what you want to interpret with IRR, all right? Anyways, so even if you didn't get the second part, that's fine. But if you get the first part, that this is how it is happening, then you will never forget IRR. Okay, so that is the internal rate of return. Okay, now there are variations for IRR like XIRR, IRR. There are various variations available. Now XIRR is just, instead of 0, if I had a particular date in handy, okay, so what I'll do is I'll just create actual dates. So 3/2022, and then I create an eDate function and I create some years to this. Okay, so I create a gap of about 12 months and I put this into date. All right, there you go. Now, if I have dates instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then what I could do is I could use the XIRR function. All right, so the XIRR function would take the values similar to IRR, but the second part is where you will use the dates. There you go. Okay, so you will see that there is a slight difference in the rate of return because this is exactly taking the days in between the dates, right? So that is XIRR. Anyways, now let's do the complication part, which is to add a bit of leverage or loan into this. Okay, so let's say now in this case we are purchasing it in cash, but what happens if we take loan? So I'm assuming that we get about 50% loan. So I'm just multiplying 90 lakhs with 50%. And loan is positive because we are receiving the loan. Okay, so that means net our investment is about 45 lakhs. But of course, when we are taking loan, it does not go without EMIs and all the interest that we have to pay. So I've created an EMI schedule here, which you can try to follow and try to understand. So at year 0 end, what we are saying is that we've raised 90 lakhs multiplied by 50%. So that is the amount of loan which is available to us. That becomes our opening loan, okay, for the next year. And then I multiply that with the interest rate, whichever is available. So here I'm taking it as 6%. All right. I'm so sorry. Yeah, there you go, 6%. And in order to calculate the repayment, we have to use the PMT function to find the equated annual installment. Okay, since we are doing the calculation annually, I am taking all the values as annual, but in reality, this is supposed to be done monthly. Okay, so the rate of interest is 6%. Your period of loan is about 30 years. The present value of loan is 45 lakhs. The future value of loan is always 0 because it eventually gets paid, right? And type is 0. So 3,26,290 is what will be our EMI for each equated annual installment for the year, right? Now, the difference between what you pay in EMI and what interest you're paying is nothing but the principal that you are returning back, okay? So if 3,26,920 is the EMI that you're paying, out of that, if 2,70,000 is the rent, the interest, then obviously the remaining part has to be the repayment, right? The principal repayment, which means that the loan amount decreases with that value. Okay, there you go. So that's my ending value of the loan, which has reduced from 45 lakhs to 44 lakhs 43,080, right? Now the same trend continues and all the other calculations remain same. There you go. So the balance is reducing each and every year till year 7. Now I'm going to make an adjustment here that at year 7, since we are selling off the property, there's no point continuing with the EMI. So I'm going to pay the entire balance which is there out of the sale proceeds of the property. Okay, so there you go, the loan is end. Now we need to put these values out here. So the loan repayment is what we're going to link out here. Okay, there you go, that's my loan repayment which is going on, and the rent will be reduced with the interest which we are paying. Okay, so that should take care of the entire calculations, right? Now you see, after considering debt which we've taken only 50%. Your returns have increased from around 13.7% to 17.49. Now the next question that you should ask after learning this concept is, why did that happen? That happened because your initial investment here, initially you had negative 90 lakhs, now you have negative 45 lakhs, because your own money invested out here is lesser. You're only putting 50% of 90 lakhs. And since your property is appreciating at a 10% rate and your interest is 6%, that is the reason why you're getting the benefit in terms of return. If this interest rate was also 10%, okay, so if I just make this as 10%, then you'll see that your returns really are not that attractive. Okay, another changes which you can try to test is, if you were to take more debt, your returns will further increase. Now this is only applicable if first your property appreciation rate is higher than your interest rate and your rental yields are good enough. Okay, so out here if you see, my rental increment rate is at about 7%, right? If I reduce it to 1%, okay, so there is no rental increase that is happening, and so I'll start making losses. Okay, and if I take, let's say, the rental yield as 1%, it drops further, right? Even after taking 70%. If I take 50% debt, then I'm going NPV negative. Now, the interesting thing to see out here is that although your IRR is giving you a return of 13.62, your NPV is still negative, right? Which means it has no meaning. So that is the reason why we calculate NPV, finally, to take a decision as to how much money we make. Out of these two, if you ask me which is more important, of course NPV, because we are interested in cash value, not the rate.
Been on 19 corporate boards. I would say that of the presentations I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them, and every one of them had a calculation of internal rate of return. If they'd burned them all, the boards would have been better off. I mean, there is so much nonsense presented because the presenters essentially know what the listeners are desirous of hearing and what is needed in order to get through something that the CEO wants to do anyway. That you just get nonsense figures. And
right. So again, if I take a property appreciation rate even further less, then you're making 5.75% return and you're making a loss of about 2 crores. So it doesn't really matter what business you're talking about. All it matters is, this is what finally you're trying to get in any case, right? So I hope this video was helpful in terms of understanding what NPV and IRRs. If you have any questions, please do put it in the comment box. And right, so I'll see you again back with another tutorial next week. Bye bye. See you.